Well, unfortunately, before this video begins, I must warn you the quality of this is not super great because I'm having to use a different camcorder for this particular video because my Panasonic that I normally use is having problems. So the audio and video in this particular talking head and in the next few are not going to be as great. So you have been warned. Welcome to TriMet 101. Today we will be talking about the Council Crest Shuttle. So last week I talked about all of the local Portland area shuttles that exist, but now time for something that doesn't exist. And I think that's kind of a shame. Council Crest provides the highest public viewpoint of Portland. And how do you access the park? By walking, biking, and driving. Line 51 provides service here as well, but it's only one trip in the morning and one trip in the evening, and it's meant for the high school students. You can also walk to Dosh Road nearby to get additional Line 51 service, but that still limits you to rush hour only, and it's kind of a further walk than what I feel is necessary. It's a park. It's a park. It's a public park that's quite large and has lots of history. Why are we limiting transit service so much to this area? It's a shame, really, because, and in a taste of irony, the first generation streetcar systems were built to this park when it was brand new and was one of the most popular, if not the most popular, streetcar line from the first generation systems. It was one of the last three remaining lines to close in February of 1950. And now we've just reduced slowly but surely to one morning trip and one evening trip. A while ago, when I would talk about TriMet's future bus routes, I mentioned splitting Line 51 into two routes, having one on Vista and Dosh Road, like today's Line 51, and having a new Line 3 that went to Council Crest Park. Well, my ideas on this have shifted slightly, but in general the idea is the same. Have a separate, dedicated service for Council Crest. Imagine the Washington Park Shuttle and what that looks like. Small minibuses that connect different destinations around Washington Park. Now imagine this, but for Council Crest, the Council Crest Shuttle. It would connect passengers from downtown Portland, Providence Park area, all the way to Council Crest. I'll show that in more detail shortly. These minibuses would be painted similar colors to the old Council Crest streetcars, and I'd like to see somewhere on the branding here where it says, "See Portland from Council Crest," just like the old streetcars. Like I said earlier, Council Crest has quite a history and has always been an area that I've been interested in once I first learned of the old streetcar systems. In fact, that was the first line that I had ever discovered was the Council Crest lines, because I believe my grandparents were talking about the fact that they knew that they existed back in the day. And because it's 2024, and because the route climbs in elevation quite quickly, I would not use gasoline or diesel-powered buses, minibuses. I would use hybrid electric buses, or better. And I'll get to the exact model of buses shortly. But first, let's discuss the route. I've drawn this in my notebook. Don't mind that I drew this back in July. So it starts at Southwest 18th and Morrison, right there in downtown Portland, right at Providence Park, right on the side of Providence Park on Morrison. And then it travels along this route. This is a big one-way loop, but the general idea is that it goes straight to Council Crest Park. It follows TriMet's Line 51 pretty closely until Vista and Patton Road. Line 51 stays on Patton Road for considerably longer than my bus does. My bus here goes onto Patton Road only very briefly before going onto Greenway Avenue, which gets you to Council Crest Park much quicker. It does serve a lot less people's houses, But that's not the point of this particular route, is to serve people and the houses along the whole route. It's pretty much a tourism sort of thing, and more so just a legitimate all-day normal bus service from downtown Portland to Council Crest Park. That's the big idea here. The minibuses here should be small enough to enter Council Crest Park directly and service it, which is something that TriMet's Line 51 has not done. And the return trip, as seen here, would use the same Ravensview, 18th, and Spring Street alignment that the current Line 51 uses. And the reason for that is a callback to the original days when streetcars were operational through here, and that was the original route, which is why TriMet runs the Line 51 in this way, even to this very day. The buses would continue up Vista Avenue and over the Vista Bridge on their return trip, and then go down Burnside, and then hook onto Morrison, and end at Morrison and 18th, right next to Providence Park. There was even a nice little cutout area here where you could easily store a bus. And this would be where the buses would probably lay over for a time. Let's talk vehicles. You probably wouldn't need anything too crazy. Simple 24-foot minibuses would very likely do the trick. Now, I personally am not a fan of the low-floor minibuses because I think their ride quality is much worse, and I think that interior ramp thing is kind of weird. And so, the regular, good old 24-foot minibuses would probably do the trick. If you want the exact model number, and if you wanted to search this up online or whatever, search up the Eldorado Aerotech 240 with a wheelchair ramp in the front of the bus, not the rear of the bus. I could make an entire video on why exactly I chose this bus as my favorite minibus, but that's it. Cutaways, as they're also known as, are not really my favorite kinds of buses. They definitely have a rough ride and are definitely, at least to my eyes, kind of uninteresting. But I would say this particular model, the Aerotech 240, is the least bad, which is why I've chosen it. You probably wouldn't need that many of these vehicles either, which would make this easier to operate. Definitely less than 10 vehicles would be required. The distance is just not all that much. So who would operate these buses? I mean, ideally you could just have TriMet do it, but I see that as very unlikely, as even right now TriMet doesn't really operate any shuttle buses with these minibuses, which again, I could maybe do a separate video on that as well. But I just find that too unlikely, so you could maybe have the same company that operates the Washington Park shuttles. I'm not sure exactly what this company... I mean, they're called Explore Washington Park, and I assume that they're employees of Washington Park, but I'm not 100% sure. But Council Crest is Council Crest. It's not part of Washington Park, so that probably wouldn't work either. So now I've narrowed it down to two companies. Ride Connection, which operates some fixed-route bus services in rural Washington County, as well as some other services in the region. I have a video on Ride Connection coming in the not-too-distant future, so you can look forward to that. Or Eco Shuttle, which provides some charter services and other services, random shuttle buses in the area, as well as the Lewis and Clark Pioneer Express. I will be making a separate video on both of these companies eventually, so definitely stay tuned for that. I cannot promise it's going to be anytime soon, as I have a bunch of other scripts and things first, but we'll get there. I would say if you get one of these companies to run the buses every 20 minutes, all day long, 7 days a week, I think it would be at least marginally successful. I know I would appreciate having all day, 7 days per week service up to this famous area. And it would certainly bring a lot more attention to Council Crest Park, especially if people see the buses going by and they think, oh, yeah, Council Crest is a thing. Maybe I should go check this out. If it's feasible to run the Washington Park shuttles every 15 minutes for free to take passengers around Washington Park, then I think it's absolutely feasible to run Council Crest shuttle buses every 20 minutes from downtown Portland. It just makes sense to me. And this wouldn't even be an issue, and I wouldn't even be making this video if TriMet actually ran fair service to Council Crest Park. But over the years, it's kind of just been slowly forgotten about, which is a shame. But anyways, I thank you for watching this video, and even if TriMet doesn't operate this future service that I hope one day exists, hopefully somebody does. So anyways, I guess I'll see you next time.